Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that's falling apart faster than the Cardinals' rotation. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Ben Samorka.
Hi, everyone.
And this week, we are joined by a guest. Yes, we have the host of Meet Me at Mutual, among many other podcasts, the blog father himself, Daniel Shoptaw.
Howdy, guys.
Thank you so much for being here, Daniel. There are certainly much better things you could be doing with your time, but we've got you here, and we're excited to have you with us.
We've tricked them.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all, thinking my life is that exciting. So, all right.
Yikes. And this week, among many things, we are going to be talking about the continued additions to the Cardinals injured list, the rotation, and some news and notes from around the league. If you have an idea for the opening joke, tweet us at Talk About Birds. Daniel, thank you again so much for being here with us. You probably have been the longest supporter of this show at this point. We had our long hiatus, and the moment we came back, you were like, hell yeah. You had us on your show, which was a ton of fun. And I just have to ask, is everything okay? Are you all right?
When you get old like me, you get set in your ways, and feeling that gap that y'all had it was good to have you back. It was always good to have continuity, if you will, in this group of people that we have with writing or podcasting, and so. There have been some shows that I've enjoyed that have gone by the wayside and never come back. So to have y'all reappear out of the ether was always was a good thing.
Well, we appreciate that, and we're super grateful to the broader podcasting and blogging and just overall social media group that supports the Cardinals. It's a ton of fun to be able to watch games and hop on whatever our platforms might be and kind of feel like we're a part of something. So thanks for being here today. We've got plenty to talk about, of course, and it seems like it's becoming a trend, but I mean, how do you start a Cardinal podcast right now? How do you start anything related to the Cardinals, or really anything in life at this point, without starting to talk about Paul Goldschmidt? We've covered him a lot at this point, but I mean, we're recording this just a couple days before July, and Goldie has pretty much already had a full season's worth of numbers that a lot of people would kill for, and it feels like we're just starting to enter into the time of the year where he really turns it on. So where do we see this going with Goldschmidt? Is it locked in at this point?
I mean, we've talked about this to some degree. We are in uncharted waters with Goldie right now. I also want to point out something as of this record. I think this is really fun. He's one home run away from 300, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Cardinals fans will get to celebrate that. But I was looking at his, just trying to look at his numbers, trying to put the season into context. And if you look at the offensive numbers above average, the little stat on Fangraphs, I think he is like 1 point away from surpassing his entire offensive value last season. He is on pace for his best season ever. He has his best WRC plus ever. He is on pace for close to 40 home runs. I don't know. Is it the bat? Is it the knob bat? Is that what has changed everything?
He's got the puck, and he's here. There's a rhyme that I want to make with that.
He's got the puck and he's here. I think that's good.
Daniel, can you think, like, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but like, I mean, this is feeling Pujols-ian, what he's doing right now. Can you think of a time as a Cardinal fan in really the last 20 years that we've had this type of consistent offensive output?
Not really. I was catching up, as part of my blog, I write, at least talking about writing up every game. And I do a hero and GOAT, the best player and the worst player of each game. Usually it's whoever the best line could be a main thing. And I was looking at it today, and Goldie's got 15 of those. Like Nolan had 24 last year. Okay, off the whole year, and he's only got one GOAT. One game that he was the worst player. For in my opinion, and I don't think so. I mean, like I said, 15 years. You've had people like Pujols and stuff that would have some great runs, but they would also have some really bad games that we haven't seen. Just some, really bad outings out of Gold. You'll have the 0 for 3 or whatever the case may be, but they're not more than 1 or 2 here and there.
Yeah, I mean, he carried that on base streak for so long, and the hit streak, right? So, and then Pujols was obviously a Gold Glove first baseman, but that didn't last for as long. Goldie is 34 and is still an elite first baseman. So it feels like he and the heads up base running, he just does everything so well. So yeah, it's really hard to ever say that he was not doing well in a game, even if he didn't necessarily get a hit.
Yeah, I think the difference, I think, in watching Goldie play first base, if we're just specifically to narrow in on that topic, Goldie's, I think Prime Albert was probably as rangy as a first baseman can be while still playing first base, but his ability to go, side to side and just his ability to run back on balls and catch fly balls. I don't know if we've ever seen anything like that, but Goldie's steadiness and his ability to pick at his hands and just his awareness around first base. We saw there was a play the other day, earlier this week, where the ball kind of lightly bounced off first base, and he kind of had the wherewithal to catch that, grab it, plant his foot on first, and he had a couple other kind of spectacular, interesting plays in that same game. I think it's in basketball, what do they call it? The court awareness, or his ability to understand where everyone is, where the ball is, what he should be doing, and then execute. I don't know maybe Arenado is the only one that I can really think of off the top of my head. His ability to slow the game down is unprecedented and uncomparable to any first baseman that I've watched, for this amount of time, I guess.
Yeah, I agree, because like you said, there were, excuse me, there were times where it felt like Albert was going to be able to make the play at second base. He had that kind of range. But I don't, Goldschmidt is just so, like you said, aware, the headiness, the game, the play you talked about. But then there in that same game was the grounder up to first base where he had the wherewithal to, touch the runner that was coming back before he touched first base so that he could get the double play. We saw last year, how many double plays that big long double play that the Cubs had started with him trying to throw a guy out at home plate, just because having that sense of awareness, and to have one of those guys, but to have Nolan on the other side, you can see some really, not just athletic defense, but smart defense that not everybody gets to see.
Yeah, we may never, as Cardinal fans, see the combo of Goldie and Arenado, again. If I can, I know we're talking about Goldie, but that bare hand catch bare hand throw from Arenado, just what was that, yesterday or 2 days ago?
Just showing off with that one.
Yeah, it almost looked like he closed his eyes and looked the other way as he caught the ball barehanded. It really was one of the more smooth plays, and Goldie makes everybody else better with that ability to pick it. Edman is really starting to show up as a shortstop. We talked about that last week, but he's making all these crazy throws, but it's really Goldie on the other end that's got that reach and that ability to stay on the bag and make the catch and make Edman look as good as he's looked.
I can think of maybe a couple of times watching Goldie in a Cardinals uniform where he's been handcuffed by a bad hop or a bad throw. His ability to just get there. And I think kind of to that point, I feel very confident in saying that we are watching 4 potential or likely Hall of Famers on the same team right now with, Yachty, Arenado, Goldie, and I'm saying Waino, because we'll talk about Waino later, but the things he's just going to keep going and keep doing this. And I think I've said this already this year, but he's backing his way into the Hall of Fame. I'm calling it now.
How do you think they structure a contract where it's like 10 1-year deals, like the Correa contract, but it's just 10 1-year deals and just let Waino back out whenever he's done?
Well, that's what they did, what the Boston did with Tim Wakefield, right? At the end of the year.
Yeah.
It was just like every year, it was like, okay, here's your contract. If you want to come back next year, here it is. And if not, great. And it could be. I also could see Wainwright. I've thought about this a little bit this week, that he could easily be one of those guys that doesn't want the farewell tour. And so he's, he may walk away at the end of the year just because that way people can't make a big deal out of it.
Well, he's got to go on tour to support his new album, so we'll see if
Fair.
if he can balance those two things at the same time. Yeah, it's so hard to tell. He's like, you could see him riding out the sunset with Yachty and Pujols and saying like, I could keep going, but I'm good.
I forgot there's 5. I forgot Pujols.
Yeah.
What am I doing?
He's like, I got mine. I'm good. I'll leave healthy and leave on a high note or whatever. Or I could see Waino pitching until he's 48 years old and like, sure, I can only throw 1 inning every 2 weeks now, but put me in, coach.
Hey, Roger Clemens was he was on the broadcast the other day, and he put out the challenge to Waino to pitch till he's 45 at least. So I say Waino's at least got to prove, Roger Clemens that he can do that.
I mean, if I were betting, I think that Waino is, barring any sort of catastrophic injury, of course, knock on wood, it's like there's no reason to believe that he doesn't have multiple years left in him. But we do have that on the
I have a point for that. I'll save it till later.
But yeah, I think, to button up this Goldie conversation, I could just pour over his Baseball Reference and Fangraphs pages all day, but the fact that he has simultaneously increased his walk rate, decreased his strikeout rate, increased his power numbers, all at the same time at the age of 34. I mean, this is just this is how you put together an MVP season. It's unbelievable. I love it. Give me more.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it's going anywhere.
It's how you reestablish the Hall of Fame pace that he was on until the Cardinals acquired him, and he had a couple, down years is all relative. Of course, he's been a very good Cardinal since they've had him, but this is what everybody wanted when we were, screaming to, acquire and extend Goldie. This is what you were hoping for, and I mean, better really. I mean, he's on pace for his best season of his career.
Daniel, would you say Goldie is the best first baseman in baseball?
I would think so. I mean, I can't think of anybody else right now, but I'm also very biased on and locally. So, Freddie's. I mean,
he's tugging at those heartstrings. He's had a very emotional week. You're not going to give him this.
No. Partly because I don't watch as much. I know you especially get a chance to watch more games than I have, but boy, again, it's very difficult right now to imagine anybody, with him be a player of the month of May, player of the week there in June. I mean, he's probably not going to win player of the month in June, but he could. I mean, it's difficult.
And like we were talking about, he hasn't even got to his hot months yet. Like there might be another level that he's going to somehow tap into that seems inconceivable right now, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you were drafting a team right now for like rest of season play, it'd be hard not to take Goldie, not only like as your first baseman, but just high up on your draft list just in general. Yeah. Well, let's move on. I mean, I think, clock this in as another 10 minutes of talking about how awesome Goldie is on the season, because and I don't think that we'll be slowing down, but we should probably move on. So we will move on to some less exciting news, sort of the shit sandwich here. We'll talk about the good stuff and the bad stuff, and then we'll get back to some good stuff. So some bummer stuff. The carousel of the injured list continues with the Cardinals this year. Flaherty, I mean, we've talked about him he probably has the highest amount of minutes talked about to actual games played, or the lowest ratio of anyone that we've talked about on this podcast, short of maybe Alex Reyes. He's back on the IL. A lot of controversy, of course, about when he was brought back from rehab. Is he on the outs with the front office? What is all this? Frankly, I've ignored a lot of that controversy, but it is ultimately, it's a bummer. I think we said a couple weeks ago that him returning from the IL, it was maybe the most important thing to happen to the Cardinals this season, and that his role on the Cardinals is critical to the success of this year. And it's about to be tested because he's back on the IL with shoulder strain. I'm sure we'll get more details soon, but we're right back where we were just a month or so ago, saying, I sure hope we get some Jack Flaherty this year.
Yeah, and I think that's multi-factor, right? In the sense that when Jack Flaherty's healthy, maybe outside of Goldie this year, he's probably the best player on the Cardinals. I would hear arguments about Nolan and some other guys too, but he's probably the most talented.
Some Spangenberg erasure, but we can.
He's not on the Cardinals right now. So.
He's a Ferrari in the garage, baby.
You take any team's, first or second most productive, best player, most talented, however you want to kind of frame that, and that's a problem. Then you combine it with the fact that the Cardinals are just in dire need of starting pitching. Like imagining where this team is without Andre Palante this season is a sad little thought exercise. I do think, I'll talk out of both sides of my mouth for a second and say that, like, I think it also speaks to a lot of credit of what Waino, Dak Hud, and Miles have done this year. Like, they have been top tier, and they have been one of the most productive, like, three-headed monsters in the starting rotation. When you kind of compare their numbers across the league, cumulatively. But that has been the position of need all spring training, all year. Him not being here is really bad. I mean, there's more to say about it, but that's how I feel about it.
Let's hold back the, we try to be an approachable show here, so let's avoid such specific content as it's really bad. Well, yeah, Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't want to get into the controversy of if it's really bad or not. That's I don't really want to get into that. Yeah, it's
put your neck out there.
Yeah, with the way the offense is going this year, I mean, one of the top offenses in baseball. This team should be pulling away from the Brewers instead of kind of bouncing back and forth. And the reason they aren't is because of not having a Jack Flaherty and not having that rotation that's been what we've seen in the past. It's frustrating to see. I mean, I don't know that I know, there were some words back and forth. I don't think that the way they cut the rehab short really made a whole lot of difference to this. I think it was probably going to happen anyway, but it does start to make you wonder, when are we going to see a fully healthy Jack Flaherty? Hopefully this is just a minor setback and we get a second half. We won't get a second half like 19, but at least something that approaches maybe even last year's season. But the more this goes on, it's just frustrating. The Cardinals have had so many great pitchers that have been cut down by injuries over the last 5 to 10 years that you hate to see Jack Flaherty be another one of those guys.
Yeah, though they really have. I mean, how many future ace after future ace has come through the system that ultimately, ends up in the bullpen, or, I'm thinking, Carlos Martinez. We were both, huge fans of him. Alex Reyes. Is Flaherty falling in that mold? Like, who's the last guy really to, like, Lance Lynn maybe, but he really only, he's different now than he was when he was with the Cardinals. I can't think of the last guy that the Cardinals have, like, pulled up, developed, and was like an ace for us until free agency. It was Waino, and he's still there.
Yeah. I know. I'm racking my brain over here. No, it can't be Wainwright.
Kyle Loge.
Yeah, he was
it's even Loesch they brought
a
in
free
from,
agent.
Yeah.
They've had some good luck with that, with the free agent market. But yeah, a lot of the good pitchers, we saw tonight, Sandy Alcantara on the other side of things. They've had to use some of that assets to get people in here. So
where does Waka fit in this conversation? Is he?
Same
he's
story,
off injured
right?
too, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, the reason he was able to walk away from the Cardinals,
Waka,
he was able to walk away.
That sucked.
That's so stupid. Was because of his injury history. He basically had the playoff. The I don't know what am I trying. He had a good a good little run, but he was so inconsistent that it was
Shelby Miller.
Shelby Miller.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of guys that have come up that just didn't pan out for injuries or other reasons. And so, to have a guy like Flaherty that really looked like he was going to, tap into what we thought he was going to be, to see him then go down and continue to bounce around with this injury stuff is frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, the idea that he was getting healthy. They were like, the only test that he has remaining is live game action. They were talking about, they were really telegraphing that to the media. And then of course that final test happens. And then it was similar to Hicks kind of starting the season. It's just, the start didn't go the way it was supposed to. The next start didn't go the way it was supposed to. And then boom, you're on the IL.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know if we need to point fingers or anything like that, but it is frustrating. I think frustrating is the right word for it.
Yeah. I don't really think there's any real controversy here. Like, what's the real difference between a start against the Pirates and a start at AAA? And it's not like
he been harder.
Yeah, he's not. It's not like he would have been. It's Jack Flaherty. He is a guy who's going to compete 100% in every setting, right? So really, what would have been the difference from like a shoulder element to pitching it in AAA versus pitching against the Pirates? All easy jokes about the Pirates aside, So I think people are just frustrated and want to point blame somewhere and say like he was rushed back, even though this was 3 or 4 starts into his return that this happened. So it's probably had nothing to do with that. And this was going to happen regardless. He just is not, there's something, more structurally going on with his shoulder that like there was, maybe it wasn't diagnosed, but I don't know. These are just things that happen, and it sucks.
I mean, pitchers break down. That should really be the thesis statement of this whole conversation. Is they're doing something that doesn't make sense, and their body hates it.
Yep. Yeah. So here we are, back where we were before. He was supposed to come in and sort of solidify the rotation, so we're right back where we were. We're going to talk about pitching a little bit here again in a moment, but the other injury, almost like more sad just because of how fun he is and what he does for the defense. But Harrison Bader on the IL, plantar fasciitis, never fun. Not great.
This one, I think all Cardinals fans probably have. Anytime they read plantar fasciitis, they think of Pujols and him dealing with that, and it basically taking his legs from him. And Harrison's game is around his legs. So I would, my worry meter is like a 7 or 8 on this. I don't think it's any secret. Like obviously his defensive value comes from his legs and the little stolen base game that he and Tommy Edman had going this season, all that. Where does he come back? How does that happen? Is this a thing that he's going to, it'll be a chronic issue now? I'm hitting the panic button lightly, I guess.
I think that's fair. I mean, especially for Harrison Bader's long-term career, if you will, because he may be able to come back this year, but how often is he going to deal with this? Because it felt like that was something that Pujols dealt with pretty much every year, probably still is, and that was obviously not part of his game. I had no idea. That was one that kind of surprised me when it came out. I figured it was just because he didn't actually tear up the Cubs like he normally does, and they figured something was wrong. But yeah, when you think about it like that, it is concerning, and we'll have to see. I don't know if there's no timetable as far as I know for him to return, but when he does come back, that's something that's going to have to be watched pretty carefully, and that could alter the trajectory not only of this season but of years to come.
Yeah. I think that's where my worry comes from. Daniel is like, what does this look like when he is, he's either stealing second or running down a ball in the gap or whatever, and is this going to keep flaring up? I will say though, I think something that we do have a luxury being Cardinals fans right now is that Tyler O'Neill should be on his way back, right? And he'll play a fantastic, Gold Glove left field, and Dylan Carlson is by no means Harrison Bader, but Dillson Carlson, the guy, is no schlub in center like that. That like a lot of teams would just play Dylan Carlson in center. So I do think that's nice to have. And when Tyler comes back, the outfield won't look totally decimated like a lot of teams would look like losing their star center fielder or whatever. But does that give you any warm and fuzzy feelings, or am I crazy?
It's a good, it's good that we have other good outfielders. It's bad that Jack Flaherty is hurt, and it's good that we have other good outfielders. And that's the kind of content that we bring to you here on Talking About Birds. Now I see what you're saying, and even Tyler O'Neill can play center, right? And so like if the worst thing is that now we have Carlson in center and Alec Burleson is playing right field, Juan Yepez is playing right field, like Brendan Donovan, who has looked okay in the outfield. He certainly loves to take a dive at a ball and look good doing it. He's got the flowing hair. We still have individual elements of Harrison Bader across this team. So it'll be okay, but it is, he brings the Cardinals have often been devoid of like fun players, swagger. Yes. Like Goldie is the opposite of swagger.
They call him Big Fundy.
Yeah. Arenado will twitch himself out of his jersey, but he's not necessarily like swagger, but Bader brings that like energy that I think, is fun besides all the skills. And there's a combo package there that I think is a net loss to the team, that even though we might be able to solve it with like different pieces in different places, it's a bummer from just like the enjoyment of watching the game. Can I really eat Bader tots if there's no Bader on the field? That's what I want to know.
I just got a little concerned when you said there were elements of Bader throughout this thing. I thought we were going to have to like chop people up and piece them together and turn into I mean, if we have to, I guess.
We just need Brendan Donovan's head and
yes,
Edmundo Sosa's legs.
Yeah.
We'll get there before you know it.
Yeah. But no, I mean, you're right though. But like there is,
I was trying to make a point, and you're just,
I feel like I was making a point.
Sure.
Arguably, I feel like I was making a better point, but it sucks. I mean, it's bad. Let me just be the first to say it. It's bad. But maybe the whole team right now is just slowly but surely being replaced by the Memphis Redbirds. So,
which is no problem.
Again. Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got what is it, 11 and 12 now that have made their debuts?
Yeah.
When you have that, you expect to be the Pittsburgh Pirates and not a team that's winning the division.
I've already exceeded the amount of, debuts that happened last year, and we are still in June.
Yeah. And not to get this conversation wildly off topic, but I think like how happy are Cardinals fans and just watching this all come to life, in front of our eyes on the big league club with Randy Flores's and his whole team's ability to draft. Like I feel like a massive wind has shifted when we're seeing the kind of contributions. Like we haven't had this since the World Series days in 06 and 11, where young guys have been making contributions and like impact contributions on the offensive side.
Yeah. Well, we've been
great.
talking about problems, now for 15 minutes, but it's still it's a really good baseball team. Like we're picking at the problems that will can become bigger if they're not addressed. But this is a really unique team right now with a really interesting blend of an MVP level player who's you would generally consider to be on sort of the back end of his career. Arenado, Pujols, Yachty, Waino, all these sort of elder statesmen, and then a bunch of dudes that are like 23 and 24 that are really carrying the team outside of at least like defensively and energetically. They're really carrying the team, and we talked about this last week, and they're not even the top prospects on the team, which is crazy. I mean, Yepes and Liberatore, they've been pretty highly ranked, but we've got some real high level prospects that are still working their way through the system. So it makes me think of like you were saying, not since like Lunau and when his machine of debauchery was rolling, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. Like, this is still a super fun team because of all these young guys coming in to fill in. If only we just had just a handful of ace level pitchers that were just ready to come up. Well, speaking of natural segue here, we did get 2 new debuts, the ones we've all been waiting for. Connor Capel. I may be getting these names wrong. So
no,
that's right.
Well,
okay.
Also, who's apparently Roger Clemens is his godson or something like that.
Nice. And James Nail, who what a fun debut. I love a debut. Even we talked about this with Kramer Robertson. These guys that like they've worked their entire lives for this, and we see them maybe not as high end prospects, but for these guys, this is the culmination of a life's work and a family's commitment and all these different things. And it's fun, regardless if their stay with the big league club is going to be a long time. Like, this is fun and worth celebrating. And James Nail is from from Missouri. He got the call, got his whole family to get tickets, get to Busch. And, as a reliever, you never know. There was as good a chance that he'd get in a game as there was that he never gets in a game and gets re-optioned down, and never actually makes his debut. But he gets his whole family up, and he gets a debut in his first real game, relieving Adam Wainwright, who he had a poster of on his wall. Which is funny because he's 29. He's not like, so that's, Waino's been going for so long that a 29-year-old is like, as a kid, you were my favorite pitcher. But anyway, he got to, live a dream come true, and it was fun. And I don't know, did you all catch this? That like his jersey was clearly like put together last minute, and I saw this on Twitter. I wish I could cite my source, but basically they zoomed in on it. It really looked like it was an old David Freese jersey that they had peeled off all the lettering, and you could still kind of see the lettering of Freese, and they'd like taped on the name Nail onto it. It was like so last minute.
Get
and
this
so
guy a jersey, rip it off the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to the Cardinals museum and rip something down.
Yeah, and so congratulations to him and his family and everything, and and hopefully he's awesome, and he had a good debut. And Capel's got the start at designated hitter in the game that's actually happening as we record. But I'm being a good podcaster. I'm not watching the game as we record, so I don't know if you guys.
Oh yeah, I would never do that.
There's a game on. Oh.
So it's the 11th and 12th debuts of the year for the Cardinals, and while these guys may not stick around forever, I guess we just keep the bus going from Memphis to St. Louis.
Yeah, and I mean, Capel's probably one that's kind of like Kramer Robertson earlier in the year, right? That can be removed from the 40-man if necessary.
Yeah.
And with Tyler O'Neill coming back soon, he probably will at least go down to Memphis. Nail, we'll see. Yeah, I think they've I think there's plenty of opportunities out there for a different arm, and
Yep.
if he can capitalize over the next week or so, then he may have a long-term future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, I'll say I've not heard his name before him coming up, and like you were alluding to, anybody that can get outs in the bullpen right now has tremendous value to the Cardinals. So I'll take it.
Yep. Genesis Cabrera is on the IL now too. However, this seems to be maybe COVID related and not something too much to worry about.
When they don't say anything, that's COVID, right?
I mean, I think it has to be, but it's very weird. I mean, you've got TJ McFarland who's on for COVID, and I'm sure he doesn't care. I'm just surprised that here we are 2 years into this. We know, how things are. If Genesis Cabrera has a COVID thing, okay, no big deal. I'm just very surprised still that there is this kind of cloak and dagger around it when it pretty much has to be that.
As somebody who's gotten COVID twice, I think I would just let the let the media know. Hey guys, I got COVID. I'll be back. I'm going to drink some orange juice and I'll get some guys out again. I will say, like, the TJ McFarland thing was kind of, is this production? Is this illness? Is he hurt? Cabrera has had a weird season too. I don't think the Cardinals are doing anything untoward or anything like that, but I wonder if this will be maybe a blessing in disguise. Maybe he can get a little time in AAA and kind of figure himself out a little bit. He's had flashes. We've talked about the 4-inning performance that he had against the Cubbies. He's had some great times, but he has not been what you'd hope for with the stuff, right?
Well, and I think I haven't looked lately, but early, I'm pretty sure he's given up either more home runs or right about as many home runs as he ever has in fewer innings. He really does feel hit or miss. There's nights where he is dynamic, and then there's nights where he may not know what zone, what area code he's pitching to. And I think he's more reliable now than he probably was a couple years ago. But yeah, there's still that little bit of, anxiety when he comes in. And there's nobody better. Except for the two guys that are, Gallegos and Helsley, but it doesn't mean that you're all that confident all the time.
Yeah, I was curious, so I looked it up while you were talking. He gave up 3 home runs last year in 70 innings, 5 and 31 and 2/3 right now. So that has definitely been a problem. It's also walking guys at a rate that isn't great, and only 7.3 strikeouts per 9. It's just so low for when you see the 98 with that curveball, and the changeup has had moments of brilliance this year too. Like, it just doesn't add up. I'm hoping that there is more to tap into and he can figure that out, but I guess we'll see when he comes back.
Yeah. Well, we know teams have exploited the 10-day IL to give guys sort of an extended break, and who knows what this is, but
do either of you know, is there any like stipulation around the COVID IL? Do you need like a failed PCR test or anything to get on that, or
a doctor's note?
Yeah.
I don't know that there is, but I also figure there's that gentleman's agreement across to make sure that people aren't abusing it,
right?
Because the Dodgers haven't yet. So,
well, there've been guys who've been put on it because they had symptoms, and then they're back off of it like a couple days later. So I don't know. It definitely doesn't seem like you need to have a failed test to go on it, but maybe you do to be able to stay on it for an extended amount of time. I'm really not sure.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully he's able to figure it out, and if he is out because of illness, we of course wish him speedy recovery, and maybe he can figure something out on a short rehab assignment. Ben, I'm going to kick this one over to you. We got a interesting word from Mazalak about Paul DeJong, and I know he's your favorite player, so I thought you'd want to share this one.
I'll go back to saying really obvious statements, and the St. Louis Cardinals are a better team with Paul DeJong on it. In what capacity? I don't know. I think we can argue about that all day, but I think the team is better. Anyways, in an interview, I believe it was with The Athletic. I should have written that down. I think this was a Katie Wu article, so I apologize. I'm not giving this person credit. But Mo referred to Paul DeJong's situation as as similar to Wally Pipp. And I think if you don't know who Wally Pipp is the guy who lost his starting job for the Yankees to Lou Gehrig. Basically went down for an injury and was never heard from again because he got replaced by one of the best hitters of all time.
You never want to be a Wally Pipp.
You never. I mean, I think honestly, I don't know if there's a worse name to conjure as far as your baseball future than Wally Pipp.
To be fair, I looked it up today. Wally Pipp the next year got MVP votes. He did it in Cincinnati, but he did have a couple more years. I always think of him like never playing baseball again, but he actually played for like 3 years.
I had no idea. That is interesting. So good for a Wally.
and honestly, I could see all of that playing out for Paul DeJong. I could see Paul DeJong having a nice season for the Cincinnati Reds next year or somebody else. But we listen to Mo, and I think all three of us you always try to decipher what the hell Mo's actually saying and how he's saying it. But when he says something like this, that's about as clear as you can get. And that seems like we're not going to see Paul for a while unless there's a major injury, which, by the way, Paul DeJong did get hit on the hand by a fastball tonight and came out of the game. So we'll see how that plays out in AAA. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Daniel?
Yeah, it's interesting. You're right. Mo we have our annual blogger event here coming up the 16th, and I'm sure we'll have questions for Mo about Paul DeJong and maybe about this as well. But looking at what he's done in Memphis, he's got 11 homers, but he's still hitting 230 if lower,
somewhere around there.
Yeah, and he's it's kind of all or nothing, and with the ballparks being different and all that, I don't know. I mean, with Mundo Sosa hitting triples every day, it seems like now, it does make it difficult for him to get up here. And with Nolan Gorman here now, there's not an obvious. You're right, unless there's an injury, it becomes very difficult unless he figures out how to play outfield or something to see how he can be back on this team, even unless he just dominates. And you're right, it could be that somebody sees value at the trade deadline, and that's the way he helps his team is by bringing somebody else in.
Yeah, I honestly I think it'd take a couple injuries, right? Because I would rather when I think about the middle infield, I think of Edman, Sosa, Gorman, and Donovan. I think I would all play ahead of DeJong right now. Now, of course, Donovan can play in the outfield, so maybe he's utilized out there instead. But even still, that's multiple injuries before you get back to Paul DeJong.
Right.
Yeah. So, we'll see. I mean, it is a bummer, but the team has made several, addition by subtraction moves in the last month or so. And one of those was sending Paul DeJong down. And it's hard to imagine him coming back without some sort of insane outburst. And hopefully the hit in the hand is nothing. And maybe he can get moved to the Reds for a bullpen arm or something.
He has a on-base percentage in AAA of .264.
Not great.
Not great.
Not great. Well, moving on, our last sort of topic in this section, we're seeing more Ivan Herrera, which is good to see. One way or another, we've got to start seeing what he looks like as the starting catcher for the Cardinals, because that's the direction it's going. So let's get him up there now. We've talked about the catcher problem for a little while now. How are you all feeling about this early taste of Ivan that we're seeing?
I so far so good. I've liked and I will admit I haven't necessarily had a chance to watch many of the games. So I've watched a couple that he's been in. I think his defense is good. He obviously has some good instincts. It was great to see him get his major league hit and a couple of hits in that game. Unfortunately, he didn't have any sense. But so it's like Andrew Kisner's lighting the world on fire offensively either. So I do think it's pretty interesting that he played 3 straight games, including a Wainwright start that Wainwright was much better in. So I this is a key, and Alan and I have talked about this on our show, that this is a very huge time for the Cardinals to figure out what this catcher situation is going to look like for next year. And one of these guys, you hope, will grab a hold of this and at least make it clear that they want to be the starter for next year.
Yeah, I think I've been, I think the smoothness behind the plate, the yachty factor, as far as like being able to frame, having the power arm, and looking like they know what they're doing when they're calling a game, has all been there. The guy looks like a catcher, which is, I think checkbox one. His arm plays way better than Kisner. I think we've seen that already in a couple of plays, and I'm very curious to see the bat. I definitely think the way in which he goes about it, by which I mean, I think we've seen him take some really nice pitches and kind of have decent at bats, although the results haven't been there, has been solid. But yeah, I think you're right on. I think this, even if, I mean, you can't get much less production than we were getting, and being able to take this time to have Ivan spend time with Waino and the rest of the starting rotation and Mad Dog and kind of be a part of the staff and be a part of professional or not professional MLB meetings and all that is all huge. And I think it would not shock me if we saw the glove kind of precede the bat and the bat hopefully kind of follow up behind that. So I'd say I'm happy about all that. I will say it does kind of bum me out about Kinsler. I always thought the bat was just going to come around, and it just isn't. And he has had some games where he's just looked rough. Like not a major league player rough. And I don't know if that's who he is.
He always was like. He was always competent at the least, if not good or great in the minors. But I mean, I have to imagine several years of only getting spot at bats and spot starts, like those skills degrade. It's hard to be a major league hitter even when you're getting at bats every single day. So if you're the backup to the catcher who's notorious for playing every single game,
right,
it's hard to keep up with those things, and you're not getting younger, while you sit on the bench. So
I wonder also, there's a lot that goes into the catching position, right? I mean, you're really focused on learning the pitchers, figuring out how to call a game, and all that encompasses. And so I think I've heard, the bat can come around late on a catcher just because they've got all that other aspects to do to deal with. So, maybe he will develop somewhere along, and maybe he won't. I mean, Carson Kelly has not necessarily just been outstanding out in Arizona, and we've always thought Carson Kelly was probably going to be maybe, I don't know where I think Kisner was expected to be a little bit better bat than him, but it was close.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Well, for what it's worth, he's only had 18 plate appearances, which is an incredibly small sample size this year. So, you can only take so much from it. But he does have an 11% walk rate in that time, which is right in line with his career average. So he's carried that eye for the plate with him pretty much immediately. And most of the projection systems, despite the fact that he has an 18 WRC plus over his first 18 plate appearances. Remember, 100 is league average. He is projected to be right around league average the rest of the season. So, some of the underlying numbers in his history would suggest that, he should be better. And we really can't judge someone off of their first 5 or 6 games in the majors. Sure. So, I think let's move on, though. We've sort of hinted at it for a little bit. We want to talk about Waino. So, Ben, I can see you're jumping out of your chair. And that's the most movement I've seen you do in a decade.
Wow. I'm an athlete, sir.
I had to wheelbarrow you around Boston.
I bowled a 157 recently.
That's fine.
It's pretty good, I thought.
It's pretty good.
All right.
This is maybe my greatest athletic accomplishment. I bowled a 212 one time, and it was
that's very good.
It was bookended by like a 75 and like a 58, and something, it just all came together for me.
When the stars aligned.
When the stars aligned. It was, I got 2 turkeys. Gobble, gobble, baby. I was on top of it then. It was the best night of my life. But anyway.
Your beautiful daughters and your beautiful wife. But yeah, that sounds good.
You ever get a high, slightly above average night of bowling? What do we want to talk about, Waino? We've talked about him a little bit, but there's something that seems to have unlocked recently.
He flipped a switch, boys. He's Waino. I mean, he talked about it in a couple of interviews. He found out, which I just find this hilarious. He was discussing his curveball with one of the guys in the bullpen. I can't remember their name right now, and realized that he had been holding his curveball grip incorrectly to start the season. During that conversation, he realized that he wasn't putting the right pressure on his thumb. He's made that adjustment. And it lines up almost exactly. He is now striking out over 10 guys per 9. We've seen 3 great starts in a row from him. We were talking about the ageless wonder, and he was getting by on pure guile and old manisms and whatever,
shenanigans and trickery. And remember that one time when he said, "Hey, look over there," and then threw the strike. That was really impressive.
Yeah. But the curveball's biting again. It's back in the I think it's 80th or 90th percentile on Statcast spin rate. I mean, the thing is, it just came back to life fully. And wouldn't you know, that helps every single other pitch that he throws quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, we're watching it. I find it hilarious. Baseball. This is why I love baseball, is that somebody who has been throwing that curveball for probably 25 years plus forgot what he was doing and then recognized it and made the adjustment.
Yeah, the strikeouts are definitely up. I will say the last 2 starts before yesterday's Monday's 7-inning shutout game, the 2 before that were a little bit concerning, just because, high pitch counts, one of those games he doesn't make it out of the 5th, which is not like Wainwright. And I did wonder if it was working with Kisner. I know they've had some history and things like that, but we saw then Herrera catch him on Monday, and everything is better. Now that's small sample size. It could be just, a lot of other variations, but you wonder if it's going to be interesting to see if this time while Molina's out, if Herrera is the one that catches him, or if there is a split between the two.
And it's so funny how that works. And I'd love to know the ins and outs of what that looks like. But we saw when Matz was healthy, Matz and Kinzer had their kind of thing, and they were working really well. And there are intricacies to the game plan and how in which you communicate that and all that I won't pretend to understand. But it is fascinating how that works out. You also have to imagine, Waino obviously is very, very comfortable with one catcher and doesn't have a lot of experience with many others. And I'm sure that's a factor too. I don't know to what degree.
He doesn't have telepathy with these guys. He actually has to, make symbols or something instead of just thinking it.
The fact that sometimes Waino and Yachty... Oh, sorry, Nate. The fact that sometimes Yachty and Waino don't even put down a sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They just blow kisses at each other.
I think we're watching different games.
Sorry, I was reading pages from my fan fiction.
Your fan fiction.
Yeah, I mean, it's Waino spent a big time of his career being, a strikeout guy, and we'd love to see some of that return. Definitely makes his success more sustainable. So I guess we'll keep an eye on it. And that I think we all want Yachty to come back healthy, but also it's just for that relationship between those two and that record that they're hunting down.
I want that record.
Yep, absolutely.
It will be interesting though, now that we're seeing Herrera get more starts and it feels like the transition is starting. Do they carry 3 catchers when Yachty comes back healthy, or do you? I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see. One last thing.
They bounce Kinzer?
I think so. I would be really surprised if it's Herrera that goes down at this point.
Yeah.
But one last thing before we go to break and into the back half of the show. Junior Fernandez back. at times has been heralded as the future of the Cardinals pitching staff, at times has been forgotten. He's had a really good week though, and the Cardinals have needed it. 6 1/3 innings, did not give up a hit. So welcome back, Junior. We need you.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Yep. It's good to see. I mean, again, small samples and relievers, and you toss out all of that stuff. But he has shown he has the talent in the past, but it's trying to harness it. It's much like Johan Oviedo, right? That we've seen finally kind of click in. I know that's a very important topic for this show, but to see him over the last little bit seem to find a spot in the bullpen and finally figure out how to throw strikes has been big.
Yeah, I mean 101 with a crazy 85-mile-an-hour changeup that'll play. And I think that the crazy, I'd kind of gotten to the point where I was just like Junior Fernandez it's just not a part of the Cardinals' future. So I'm going to kind of take this and run with it, and at least be very happy with it for this last week, and I guess see what happens the week next or the next week. Yeah.
Certainly will take anything. And, the thing with small sample sizes is you can't predict the future using them, but you can at least be happy with what you got from them. And we'll certainly take, 6 innings and a third with perfect results. So we've got more league-wide news to talk about. And of course, I'm going to subject these two to a brand new game. But before we get to that, I got a DM on Twitter today from Daniel here himself saying he wants to take the ad read.
Oh,
so I'm going to give it over to our guest to tell all of our listeners about how they can support us.
If somebody doesn't remember, I've done this before.
You
back
have
in the old days. So
I remember, but I was surprised you wanted to do it again.
Yes, well, y'all may not like it when I do. Okay. Are you looking for great ways to be informed and connect on social media? There's a lot of great accounts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you're going to follow those accounts, you might as well follow these guys as well. The social media branding experts that call their Twitter one thing and their Instagram another. Let's talk about birds on Twitter and talking about birds on Insta, as the kids say.
We gotta fix that. We really gotta fix that.
At least that's what the media tells me the kids say. You can also like their page on Facebook if you want to risk over there and finding the part of society that thinks culture peaked in the 1980s. But I hear you saying, "Oh, that's all great, but I'm not up for this big group social media interaction." You are in luck. You can harass Ben and Nate in a much more confined setting. You can email them at talkingaboutbirds@gmail.com and ask them all sorts of things, like when Yadier Molina will be back, why Dakota Hudson can't throw strikes, and why they have really stupid guests on their show. I also hear Nate has a lot of varied interests and is quickly moving into cargo shorts dad territory. So be sure to ask his opinion on those. Also, Ben is getting married. And so if you have great ideas for his wedding plans, such as having the Rockies mascot Dinger be the ring bearer, email him and I'm 100% sure he will do whatever you suggest.
That's the smartest thing that's ever been said on this podcast.
And did you know you can actually pay these guys to do this show? I know, right? I'm planning to start a Patreon myself that gets people to pay me not to do my shows as my retirement plan. But anyway, look them up on Patreon. And if you contribute monthly, no matter how little or how much, you can be part of their very own private Discord server that they proudly call the Bird Scored. I know, but we humor them. Get in there as we talk about games and the moves the Cardinals have made and should make. If you're on the fence about this, let me give you a simple sample of the depths that you can find there. The most recent post from Nate is from Nate, who says that was a great game until it wasn't. If you listen to this show, you can tell this is powerful stuff. Also, all Patreon supporters get an invite to Ben's wedding. You can find them on your favorite podcast platform, which you probably know since you're probably listening to them now on your favorite podcast platform. And they can also be found on Spotify, though they have not yet gotten the Joe Rogan deal.
Not yet.
I don't know if we want the Joe Rogan deal at this point.
There are some drawbacks.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing our job better than we've ever done.
Yeah,
it before.
for real.
That was amazing.
All part of the service.
Dude, the dinger being the ring bearer, the dinger bearer, the ringer bearer. There's something there.
I cannot tell you how excited Mary would be about that. That is the first thing I'm going to tell her as soon as we're done.
I'm supposed to do some degree of like music or DJ or something at one part of the wedding.
You have a job, yeah.
I have a job, and if I can get a hold of a dinger costume, I'm doing it all in.
You got to do the head. You got to do the head spin around.
Oh hell yeah, of course. Well, thank you. Please, let's tell our listeners, what about your stuff, Daniel? Thank you for telling everyone about ours. But if you want to hear an actual intelligent, Cardinals blogger, Cardinals person talk about the Cardinals, where can people find your content, and how can people support you?
Well, if you're looking for that and you want to be disappointed, you can find me at Twitter, C70. You can find me writing at the Cards Conclave, which is cardsconclave.com. You can find Meet Me at Mutual on all the podcast platforms as well. You can find Gateway to Baseball Heaven there as well. I occasionally throw up something at us on the Substack, which is cardinal70.substack.com. And I think that's everything baseball related, at least.
Great. Well, Daniel had us on Meet Me at Mutual pretty early in the season, and it was a ton of fun. It's a great podcast. Highly recommend you check it out. It has a one steady co-host, but you manage to fill in when Alec can't be there, with a ton of great people from around the sort of Twitter and Cardinal blogosphere, and it's always a good listen.
Yeah, well, thank you guys.
Yeah. So we've got some broader league news here to talk about. Just some it's always fun to touch into the things that are happening that are not Cardinal related. I'm going to turn over to Ben to sort of hit the first topic here.
Yeah, I think this whoa, I'll calm down. This is Cardinals relevant, since the Cardinals are making their trip out to the city of brotherly love here soon after this Miami series. Bryce Harper, who I think this podcast is pro. Like
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Bryce Harper. Yeah,
I know he can rub people the wrong way, but we like him.
And a lot of that was so earlier in his career, when he was like 20, and he was on the cover of ESPN when he was like 15. So it's like, that is the recipe to be a douchebag. And I think that he has matured in a way that, he doesn't really get credit for. People just assume he's still an asshole. And everything seems to indicate that he's actually a pretty cool guy at this point, including this situation.
Yeah. Well, so he, unfortunately, he's got an elbow issue, so he's DHing only. And then he goes up to face the Padres. Blake Snell's throwing straight gas. Throws a four-seamer high and inside and catches his thumb. And if you saw that replay, it was bad. The thumb is destroyed. Actually announced today that he's going to be getting surgery. With the plan, he's not getting elbow surgery. The plan is to get the thumb surgery, get him back as quickly as possible, address the elbow later, but he's going to be out for at least a few months. And I say this is one of those. It's like the Fernando Tatis injury. It's one of those injuries. It's just bad for baseball. I think wherever your fandom lies, baseball is better with Bryce, and having an injury like this it's just a bummer.
It sucks. I think he is Hall of Fame, and he's one of the best players in baseball. I think he's a good face of the game. I don't know if you caught it. He was rightfully, like anyone would be, he was pretty emotional when he first got hit. But then Blake Snell was basically like, I'm sorry, like was yelling, and Harper was like, I know, it's not your fault. Like he was basically like accepting Blake Snell's apology on the field before he even got into the dugout, which I thought was really nice, because of course Blake Snell wasn't trying to do that. Like, outside of most situations, guys aren't trying to hurt anyone else, and that sucks. What it's gonna, if you're the one who hurt Bryce Harper, you're gonna hear about it. So it was nice of Harper to forgive him, like, on the field. So it sucks. I did see a report today that he might be back in 6 weeks. I think that's a little lofty, but maybe he'll come back sooner than you normally get from a shattered thumb. But hopefully he comes back quickly.
Yeah, I think I heard him say that he'd rather take 98 to the face than 97 to the thumb. And he can say that because he's taken 98 to the
He's done
face.
both. Yeah.
But good. Yeah. The fact that, he was accepting Snell's apology there. And, he said, afterwards, hey, I played with him since I was, 10 or something like that. I know he wasn't trying to hurt me. And we saw what he did with Genesis Cabrera, getting hit, in the face. And he was, absolutely, supportive of Cabrera and all that kind of stuff. I think it just shows you what kind of player and person he is.
Yeah, if memory serves, he got Cabrera's number and reached out and called or texted and said, "Hey, don't worry about it. It happens." And totally what you're saying.
He's like the opposite of a douchebag, but he still has that reputation of when he was young. And I mean, he kind of was, but again, he was like programmed to be a douchebag by the treatment that he got as a teenager.
If I was on TV when I was 18, nobody would talk to me. Yeah.
For being how like strong you are and when you're like 18. I mean, I was on a couple covers of a few magazines for how strong I am. But
sure.
Yeah.
All right. Another thing I wanted to break up is we kind of alluded to it, I think, at one point, but Freddie Freeman comes back to the ATL. I think we all thought this would be a thing. I think what I have written here, apparently there is crying in baseball, lots and lots of it.
Yeah.
I don't think I really have an opinion about Freddie Freeman crying. I was shocked about the quantity of the crying, just because that is not something that we see from professional athletes. But the question I want to ask you two is, how are you feeling if you are a Dodgers player and you see the kind of emotional outbursts? And I know there's a lot more tied into this. I'm oversimplifying it, but Daniel, if you're Clayton Kershaw, if you're Mookie Betts, how are you feeling about Freddie Freeman's kind of the way he dealt with the media? I don't know what you want to call it, over the last weekend.
Well, you saw Clayton Kershaw said something about, I hope we're not second fiddle. And yeah, I think there's probably a little bit of that. It does sound like, I was reading a article from Ken Rosenthal today that basically Freeman's firing his agents because it really feels like that this whole situation didn't go the way he wanted it to go. But I think you also realize there's those ties. I mean, I don't think anybody had on the Angels thought anything less of Albert Pujols when he came to St. Louis and was just, almost, it was almost like a home game for him. So yeah, I mean, it's fresh and new for them because he's just a Dodger now, but I think it passes pretty easily after they get out this weekend.
Yeah. Well, they won a World Series together, and also Freddie Freeman, like, do you remember it wasn't that long ago when all the news articles were like, poor Freddie Freeman, he's the only good Braves player. Like they blew up the whole team and he's stuck there. Like, why won't the Braves trade Freddie Freeman? He went through a lot on that team. And I think probably most guys understand that. And then now that article also, we're learning a little bit about like, he might have been directly misled by his agent as well about like the contract offers and things like that, which is really shitty. So it all just it's kind of unfortunate. It sucks for everyone except for the fact that he still is making hundreds of millions of dollars and plays for the best team in baseball. So there's still,
there's that.
It's okay. Well, everyone's gonna be okay out of this whole thing. So I don't know. I like these guys showing their emotions. Like I think that's the newer wave of not just baseball but just athletics. I want to see these guys actually care.
And to be clear, I don't have any problem with that. I was surprised by it because we just don't see that. I was more wondering, like if you're if the Cardinals fans are watching Nolan go back to Denver and he was beside himself, I know what Cardinals Twitter would be saying. There would be some vitriol and that wouldn't go over well. But anyways, all right, let's move on. Next topic: Mark Appel, former first round overall pick. I think it was 2012 or 2013. I might be pulling that number out of thin air.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
A long time.
Mark Appel.
That one's for you, Daniel.
He has made the Phillies big league club. As of this record, I do not believe he has made his big league debut, but it is highly likely that the Cardinals will see him next week. And if you remember all the weirdness and pain and suffering that kind of happened with the Astros when he was originally drafted, it's just a feel-good story. Happy for the guy. Apparently, he's throwing really well. He's cut down his repertoire to 2 pitches, and apparently they're nasty. So just nice to see that kind of work out for a guy who had everything and then didn't, and then got tossed around and left baseball and came back. And I mean, that's one of the reasons I love baseball so much, is that stories like this are even possible.
Yeah, good for him. I mean, it's quite the comeback. I hope he sticks, except for when he's playing against the Cardinals. I hope they send him back to the minors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a testament to his resiliency, and you love to see a guy succeed after all of that. First round pick. I mean, there's a whole thing in baseball about the first overall picks, like not often succeeding. And he might be the poster child for that, at least of the last several decades.
Yeah. And because, I mean, they took him over Chris Bryant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, that could have, there were a lot of what ifs and what could have been there. But it's good. Yeah, you're right. To be able to see a guy that can, go away and come back. I mean, we've seen some of those kind of things with Cardinal players over the years, and other teams have as well. But it's always a good story, and that's kind of what baseball is.
Yeah, it's like the pros, and there's a lot of downside to like the insane degree of depth that there is to all of the minor league systems and whatnot. That like. On the downside, it's this like, grinder that just churns through players and like exploits, workers to the extreme degree. But on the other side of that, if you can still play, there's a team for you somewhere. And if you can excel, you can make your way back through that system. And, most other sports, once you sort of fall out of the major league level talent pool, like you're done. You will never have another shot at it.
Yeah. And hey, if you can throw the ball, go get in the Phillies system, and they'll probably be a major leaguer pretty soon.
Also, if you can catch the ball.
If you could do anything other than hit a home run every once in a while, the Phillies could use you. Get in line.
And Castellanos is not even having a good year. The Phillies are just, I hope the Cardinals crush them.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, but
to be fair, that sucks for them. Like Castellanos has been awesome for several years, and they go and get him, and it's like it fell apart. So yeah.
All right.
Schwarber's doing okay for him. At least he's hitting a lot of home runs.
He could hit bombs. He's going to need to hit about a bomb every night with Harper down, but we'll see what happens. Last thing I wanted to talk about, I don't think we could do a podcast about baseball without talking about the fightiest fight I've seen in quite a long time. I'm referencing the Mariners and the Angels. Nothing better than two mediocre teams ripping each other's heads off. This was really started by Mike Trout kind of got buzzed high and inside with some big heat. He complained about it to the media. And the Angels did something that I think it was so transparent that I wouldn't be surprised if Phil Nevin does not come back from comes back from his suspension, no longer the manager. Phil Nevin started an opener, which is not something that they have done historically this season, to specifically throw at Angels players, in my opinion. And I mean, I can't do the fight justice on this podcast, but go look it up if you haven't seen it. 12 players got suspended. I was reading that an interpreter got suspended as part of the brouhaha that happened. Yeah, I agree with you. That is being a team player right there.
Yeah, get in there.
By far the smallest person on the field. And then
a bit of a player suspended. Because if not, this is going to be really fun.
That's a good question.
It's like Stubby Clapp getting in there and suplexing Pete Alonso. Get the interpreter in there.
So 12 guys suspended. One of them was interpreter, and Archie Bradley. If you haven't seen the video, again, look for the Archie Bradley. He basically falls into the dugout, breaks his elbow.
He's out. Yeah, he's fucked up.
Yeah. I don't know what other color to add to this, but I guess that happened. It was a good one. Raisel Iglesias threw a bunch of sunflower seeds on the field after the fight was over. To what end, I don't know. Who did he think was going to clean that up? It was good. I'll say that. Lots of suspensions all over the place.
I looked it up today because I wondered if they did. Phil Nevin's major league debut, the catcher on the Astros was Scott Servais. So they had a brief overlap in Houston.
Wow.
But yeah, it was. We saw the fight earlier this year with the Mets, and we saw Gallegos go over the wall, and that was cool and fun.
Yeah.
But if he had face planted and been out for the rest of the year, and then he would come back, everybody would strangle him because what are you doing? And I think that's got to be with Bradley because go around if you gotta,
if you're gonna go over a wall, you better be damn confident that you can ace the vault. Cabrera, it was stupid, but he at least did it well and got over it. But breaking your elbow going over a dugout wall is maybe one of the funnier things to have happened this year. I hope he seems whatever. I hope he recovers and everything, but big oof on that one.
And that could be frustrating because as badly as the Angels have played, in theory, could he have been on the trade market? That he's had much of a season, so maybe not, but
yeah,
I think you're right on. I think absolutely he would be on the trade market though. Everybody's he gets ground balls, everybody needs that. And not the Angels don't have a lot of tradable pieces, but I think that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, don't break your elbow jumping over a wall if you're a Major League Baseball player. I think that's our takeaway here.
Or anybody, really. Just don't do it.
Also, one more bit of color to add to that. Jesse Winker, as he was leaving the field, decided to give the double middle finger to the Angels fans, I think caught him a couple extra days of suspension. So just a classy night by everybody.
Nothing classier than flipping off.
Did you see this? I saw it on the Athletic today. I don't know if y'all remember about last year before, maybe it was early this year, when Joey Votto got tossed out of a game, and there was a girl there that was waiting to see. Joey Votto was her favorite player, and it kind of became a big deal. And he said he signed her a ball, met with her. The same girl went to that game to see Jesse Winker because he was a Red. And he got tossed out of the
game. Did
probably flipped her off too.
Yeah.
And so he signed her a ball. So if you ever want to see your favorite player tossed out of a game, find that girl.
Yeah,
and that's amazing. It'll happen.
That's amazing. That's like the person who survived both of the atom bombs in Japan, anyway.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing I thought of.
One.
Yeah. It's basically the modern equivalent of that. Yeah, it's great. What a good benches clearing brawl. Anything ending with someone flipping off an entire stadium with both their hands, it's going well.
100%. Yeah.
Well, speaking of things going well, it's time for that to end and us to move into the last section of the podcast. Daniel, we've been, I know you listen to the show. We've been doing, we've been ending every episode with me challenging Ben on some sort of stupid game, and a lot of those games, he's flexing right now, and not honestly, rightfully so. He typically does pretty well.
Python's over here, baby. Look at that.
Well,
although I can't remember how well he did on the game that I suggested for you to
play. You created the Star Wars game, and
that's what it was.
He did okay.
He did fine. He did fine.
Yeah, I've got a whole new game for us tonight. I've been thinking about something that would work with multiple people, and so I was thinking, everyone here is obviously we're Cardinal fans. We're doing a Cardinal podcast. It'd be weird if we weren't. And who doesn't love, talking about stats, remembering stats, thinking about some of the most impactful players that the Cardinals have had over the last couple decades. I'm going to put you each to the test to see how much do you actually know about some of the most famous Cardinals of all time in a game that I'm calling What Did He Do?
What did he do?
That was good. I'm shaking.
So here's how this game is going to work. I have a series of players and a distinct stat of theirs. We're going to go back and forth. I will say the player and the stat, and whoever goes first will have to make their best guess at what that stat is. So if I said something like, how many wins does Adam Wainwright have as a Cardinal? Whoever goes first will make a guess, and then whoever goes second will make their guess. We are doing Price is Right rules, so whoever
Important to clarify.
Yes, whoever is closest without going over will win, and we'll see who wins. Because we are doing Price is Right rules, I am your host, Bob Ballparker.
Boo. Boo.
Oh, that actually physically hurt.
You can thank Molly for that one. So,
I think this game is rigged already.
Daniel, you are a guest. You will go first. So, our first one. What is, and this was at least before tonight's game, what is Albert Pujols' batting average as a St. Louis Cardinal?
Oh, as a Cardinal. I'm going to say 322.
322. All right, Ben, what is your guess?
I'm going to guess that Daniel's over, and I'm going to say I'll go 300.
Everyone listening knows Ben was just way wrong. The answer is 326. Daniel, you nailed it.
All right.
So I will say, I meant to say this before, though this is unlikely. If anyone gets it exactly right, you get 2 points.
2 points. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. Ben,
Beginner's
you will go.
luck. Yeah.
You will go first on this one.
Thank you.
Lou Brock, known speedster. He actually leads the Cardinals all time in stolen bases. But how often was he caught? Ben, how many times was Lou Brock caught stealing?
Okay, I know this number is high because that was when people didn't care about getting caught by caught stealing bases. So I mean, it's high. Obviously, he stole more than he got caught. Oh my goodness. I'm going to guess. Oh, I hate this. I'm going to go with 435 caught stealing.
435. Nice. Yep. Daniel, what's your guess?
I feel like that's high.
I feel like it's high.
I'm going to say 356.
All right, you are both over.
Over, really?
Now, technically, Daniel, you're closest, but that's not how Price is Right. Price is Right.
Points for there.
No points awarded.
I almost went 0 just for the heck of it.
I thought you might. He was caught 285 times.
Wow. Okay. Know your Hall of Famers better, I guess.
Yep. Daniel, maybe the most famous home run hitter of all time on the St. Louis Cardinals, Mark McGwire. How many home runs as a Cardinal did Mark McGwire hit?
Okay. So there were 34 and 70.
You should guess 1,000.
I'm going to say 194.
194. Great. Ben.
So I had 250 in my mind before Daniel guessed. I'm gonna play the game. I'm gonna play the game, and I'm gonna go with $1 Bob Ballparker.
Thank you for honoring my name.
Of course.
Ben, you're gonna take this one. Mark McGuire. Wait. Hold on. I might have just screwed it up. That's incorrect. Daniel, you're gonna take this one. I'm so sorry.
The only thing better about getting points is when Ben thinks he got points.
I almost screwed it up, but I saved it. He hit 200. He hit 220 home runs as a Cardinal. So Daniel, with your 196 guess, you are correct. You were the closest without going over. So Ben, thank
my
you for trying to
250 would have been wrong. My
That's
one
why
is
I
wrong.
got. Yeah, the 250. You broke my brain for a second and made me think that Daniel guessed 250. So
Damn it.
I need to write down what your guesses are. All right. Ben, you will go first on this one.
All right.
Ray Langford, Cardinal Hall of Famer.
Yep.
All around chill dude.
Friend of the pod.
We assume he likes us. Him and my dad share a first name, so he must like us.
That's how it works.
How many runs did Ray Langford score as a St. Louis Cardinal?
Oh my goodness. I am going to Daniel, you're screwed on this one. I got it locked in. All right. Sorry. I'm going to go with 950.
950. Great. Daniel.
Oh. I'm going to say I don't have any idea. 800, just because.
It's a good reason.
Yep.
Here comes the
I did my
W.
best stuff with that.
Ben.
Yeah.
You are super close.
Oh.
Unfortunately, you're a little bit high.
No.
Ray Langford scored 926 runs as a St. Louis Cardinal.
This is the worst night of my life.
Well done, Daniel. Daniel is currently winning 3-0.
Oh my goodness. I like the game when I'm playing no one. Better.
All right, Daniel, you will go first. Bob Gibson. When you go to Baseball Reference and you look at all-time leaders for the St. Louis Cardinals on pitching stats, he leads just about every single thing. He's also known for being a little erratic. You never felt safe while in the box against Bob Gibson. At least that's his reputation. How many people did Bob Gibson hit while a starter for the St. Louis Cardinals?
Not as many as we think. I'm going to say, pitch. I'm going to say 84.
84. All right, Ben.
All right. The number I had in I think I'm just going to say the number I had in my mind. I'm going to go with 49.
Bob Gibson hit 102 people.
Goodness.
It's not as many as we as you think when you hear his reputation, but it was also still 102 people.
Yeah.
Daniel running away with this game. This is like, when you'd play a video game by yourself and you think you're like really good at it, and then you and then you play online and you just get smoked by everyone. I think that's what's happening.
That's how Daniel's feeling right now. Yeah, I agree.
There's still some time left. You're gonna need a miracle, Ben, but
I always run it out.
Yeah,
I've got some more hustle player.
Everyone's favorite broadcaster, Al Raboski. Why was he so mad? He had a great career with the St. Louis Cardinals and beyond. How many
Great
saves?
preamble.
How many saves as a member of the St. Louis Cardinals did he have? Ben, you go first.
Oh, damn it. That I don't know. That is a baseball reference page that I do not wander to very often. So I'm not feeling very equipped for this. Obviously he was very good. People know who he is, but not a Hall of Famer. Hall of Famers are generally around 400 to 500. So I'm going to say that he had 230. Oh, wait. I'm just going to say he had 200 even saves for the St. Louis Cardinals.
All right, Daniel.
I'm going to guess 10 because I don't know, but I think 200 is too high.
It'd be awesome if it was like 6. Well, Daniel, you're playing the game and you're winning the game. He had 59 saves.
What?
As a St. Louis Cardinal. Yeah.
I got to feel like, I don't know how long Al pitched for the Cardinals, but he's never been listed as a Cardinal Hall of Famer or anything of that nature. So I don't feel like his tenure was all that long, and saves were different back then. So
I resign.
Yeah, I think he had, it was a less common stat at that time. I think his most he had in one season was 23, and he actually was top 3 Cy Young that year. So just a totally different time for baseball. So,
this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Daniel, you're currently winning 5-0. But hey, remember, if you get it exactly right, you get 2 points. So Ben, you're not out of it yet. There's 3 more.
Mathematically, I'm in this.
This one, I think, is the most likely one of you will get exactly right. Stan Musial, the best Cardinal of all time, one of the best players of all time, inner circle Hall of Fame. Much like Bob Gibson, his name is at the top of virtually every single offensive leaderboard for the St. Louis Cardinals. How many total bases did Stan Musial have? Daniel, you go first on this one.
I want to say it was like, I think I've seen this number before somewhere. I'm going to say, what's his hits?
Total bases.
Yeah, I'm going to say 4,600.
All
right, 4,600. Ben?
So I was going to guess 4,152, but I need a win badly. I'm going to go with $1.
So
I think it's probably over what Daniel guessed. I'm just going to say $1.
Well, we're looking for hits, not dollar amounts. So you're inherently, gonna struggle here.
$1 Nate buck.
Ooh. Well, now those are worth a whole. Stan Musial's total amount of hits or total amount of bases as a St. Louis Cardinal was 6,134. Daniel's streak continues.
Wow, that's impressive. That's a huge number.
That's a lot.
Ben, do you want us to publish this episode, or should we just bury this in the vault?
I'm just going to walk into traffic, so do whatever you want with it.
All right, now we're going to more modern times. We just have a couple left. David Freese, Cardinal legend, friend of emos, World Series hero, famous Pittsburgh Pirate. He will forever be etched in the memory of St. Louis Cardinal fans, at least if you were alive during that time. But how many games did he actually play as a St. Louis Cardinal? How many regular season games did David Freese play as a St. Louis Cardinal? Ben, you go first.
650.
650. Locking it in quick.
Yep.
Daniel.
I'm going to say 522.
Ben, you will be glad to know that no one won on this one.
Really? It was less than 522?
466 regular season games.
Wow.
He was really only a starter for a couple years. You know, it took him a couple years to get in, and then he was only a starter for a couple of years.
Man, I suck.
I'm sorry that it took this long for you to know something that a lot of us have known for a very long time.
I just don't look inside a lot.
Yeah. All right, last one. Also a hero of the 2011 World Series. Chris Carpenter was known for his longevity. Type of guy you could expect to start a game and finish a game. How many complete games does he have as a St. Louis Cardinal? Daniel, you are first.
I will say 10.
10. Ben?
My initial guess was going to be 23, but I need a point so badly, I'm guessing 11.
You know what, Ben? It worked. He has 21 complete games as a Louis Cardinal.
You really should have gone with 23.
That would have been hilarious because you would have been so close but wrong at the same time. So let me count it up real quick.
Do you need to count that up?
Daniel, you're going to take this round of what did he do? I was trying to play the sound.
What did he do?
Good job, Daniel. We're all very impressed.
You win 7-1. Proud of you. Though.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll take it. It was a lot of luck, but we'll take it.
You should take it and be proud. Although, I mean, really beating Ben, what are we doing here, frankly?
Wow.
So that'll do it for this episode of Talking About Birds. Daniel, thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
A lot of fun, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And we'll be back next week with another episode, same time, same place. And until next week, go Cardinals.
Thank you. Bye.